Today, we're looking at Diamine's Blaze Orange. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Diamine's Blaze Orange, as it sounds, is an orange ink. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then ink it up into a different pen for a day. I then put it into a fountain pen Revolution Himalaya with their flex nib to take my notes for this video. Before we get to the writing sample, let's take a look at the sciencey bits. Up first is the chromatography, and I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and put it directly into water for 10 to 15 seconds, and we see it flees up the page. Very, very light orange. We start getting some darker orange with yellow out on the bottom side of it, and then a darker orange at the top. Now the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into the water. And other than the fact that it doesn't come as high up the page, it looks exactly the same. Resistance tests are done to see how it can be expected to hold up on paper and how hard it might be to clean out of your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, we see that the H starts to reactivate some at the top, but it doesn't seem to be reactivating horribly and feathering all over the place. So this might be a candidate to use if you had to highlight. Water completely reactivates, starts pulling it very much off the page. While there still is some of a dull orange left behind, it's mostly going away, and that was only 30 seconds. Now, Pen Flush did exactly the same thing, but pulled a little more off the page, leaving a little bit of white showing through at the top of the Pen Flush. Bleach completely obliterated it, pulled it completely off the paper. Now, there's no reason to have to get to the Pen Flush or bleach stage to clean your pens. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5. Keep in mind that 2.1 to 2.9 is normal. Diamine's Blaze Orange has a viscosity of 1.74, which makes it a wet ink. Still just on the faster of normal side, being 1.74, but it's very wet. It's also close to that chasing water area of red. To find my average dry times, I average the writing samples on Tomoe River, Clairefontaine, and Rhodia paper with the extra fine and medium nib of my writing samples. For the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21. Now, Diamine Blaze Orange has an average dry time of 14 seconds, which is within the normal range. It's on the faster side of normal, but certainly normal. Now let's get to the writing sample. I have this ink in sample form, and to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub. I use a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's look at Clairefontaine. We get no bleeding. We get no ghosting. When we look at the 1.1, we get good crisp edges. We have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Shading. Tons. It looks like fire. Look at Blaze. It looks like fire. That's nice. With the extra fine, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Shade. Blaze Orange is good for this name. It looks like fire. This is nice. 9 seconds to dry. With a medium, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Crazy shading. Look at what happens here. It's shaded well with the extra fine. It goes nuts with the medium. 13 seconds to dry, and when you look at these scrubbies, in both cases you see tons of shading going on. And in a smear, the medium you might be able to save, the extra fine you can't. Going on to Tomoe River, we have no bleeding. We have some ghosting. It's Tomoe River. If you like it, get used to it. If you like Tomoe River and you use both sides, tell me. I want to know who in the world can use both sides and actually use this paper. So something strange did happen here, though. With the 1.1, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, but we have shading. And that's unusual for me to get on Tomoe River paper, to get shading.
so often that ink is able to sit and completely level out and lose it. Now, we don't get the same amount of shading that we had on the other paper or that we're going to have on the other papers, but we still get to have shade. So, you know, there you go. You got one ink you can use and get shade on Tomoe River. You got one. Don't ask for two. I don't know that you're ever going to get two, but you got one. Let's take it. Extra fine. I think I just said it. I'm going to go real fast again just in case. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Tons of shade. 16 seconds to dry. On the medium, look at that. Just look at that. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Crazy amounts of shading. It's worth 21 seconds. It's worth 42 seconds. That's great. That would have been allowed to dry longer, and I'd have been okay. Just saying. That's nice. Look at the scrubbies. We actually see color variation in the scrubbies on Tomoe River paper. But on a smear, you still lose it. Going on a rodeo, we have no bleeding, no ghosting. With the 1.1, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Shading. Shade all over. Throwing shade. It's all over it. Shading. Extra fine gives us no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Shading. Shading with an extra fine. I can't say that enough for this ink. It shades with an extra fine. Something extra fine pen users don't get to normally experience. Shading in ink. They usually give it up for the nib. And you get it here with 11 seconds to dry. Now, despite the messy handwriting right there on the medium, look at that medium. We have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Shade like crazy. With 14 seconds to dry, and we see in the scrubby, there's a lot of shade to be had. We can recover this writing if we smear it. So with such a strong color, I want to know what it holds up to with some other toned paper. So I went to the yellow rhodia. Of course we have no bleeding. Of course we have no ghosting. Looking at the 1.1, I want to know about the color change for having yellow background. Now we lose some of the shading because of the yellow, but it still gives us shade. So this is something that is a definite disadvantage to it, and it still gives it. More importantly, we're actually able to read this. So I'm looking at the 1.1, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We got shading in a situation that's set up to make it fail. On the extra fine, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We still get shading. It's just really become much more subtle, but it's there. It is still there. The and the, look at those T's to the H's. That yellow paper is still letting the shade happen. This ink demands shading. It will accept nothing else. 11 seconds to dry. With the medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, shading. Tons and tons of shading. I like this ink. It's a beautiful color. If you like orange, and I do like orange, it goes with brown ink very nicely. This is a good ink to use. 14 seconds to dry with the medium. When we look at a scrubby of both the extra fine and a medium, we do see that we expect a lot of color variation here. And we get it. I just don't know, because it's a lighter ink, that we would be able to recover if we smeared. And now we're on to black and red. Yep, black and red. And we have no bleeding, no ghosting. Now this is a paper that tends to absorb the ink just a little bit quicker. With the 1.1, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We have shade because this ink demands shade. It was in the ink's contract when it was sold. It has to have shade on every paper. I didn't put this on notebook paper, and I sort of wish I had during the testing, just to see if it would shade on notebook paper or on cheap 20-pound paper. But I don't want to waste the ink doing that, since I know it does so well. Looking at the extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We get shading. We have shading. Not as much here. Not as much here. Just great orange, little bits of shading, not as much. It could have just been a something with this paper because it's absorbing in a little quicker. We do have shade, just not as much. 6 seconds to dry. Looking at the medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Shading, lots of it. just like all the other papers. This ink is a shade monster. 8 seconds to dry. And when we look at these scrubbies, tons of shading. Tons. It's an amazing ink. The smear, I don't know that you get to recover this on a smear. So that's what I have for the writing sample.
Instead of finding inks that look like Diamine's Blaze Orange, I would prefer to find an ink that would complement that orange on the page. I have chosen Noodler's Gruene Cactus because of its great green color. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask if you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, and if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Diamine's Blaze Orange? If I didn't already own a bottle, I would be rushing to buy a bottle. This is a fantastic orange ink. This is an ink that if somebody enjoys orange inks, they need to have one. I use this quite regularly because it is a very bright and it stands out against almost every ink that I would use. Thanks for watching.